Good morning, and welcome to the annual holiday breakfast. Today we gather to celebrate the holiday traditions of the students and faculty in the AC community. This is a time when we come together and appreciate the culture of those around us. On behalf of the AC community, I want to welcome the guests and families that have traveled to celebrate with us. Our students and faculty have prepared a beautiful array of holiday traditions to share with you today. Please enjoy the program. We would now like to offer an international welcome.
السلام عليكم. تفضلوا.
안녕하십니까. 환영합니다.
Giáng sinh vui vẻ.
Chào buổi sáng.
Welcome.
Do widzenia.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Привет. 欢迎. Magandang umaga. Kumusta kayo? Mabuhay.
صباح الخير مرحبا.
You will now hear the lifer speeches from the senior class. The class of 2018 is a class that personally I'm so proud to be a part of. We are passionate, caring, tight-knit, and frankly, a little bit of a mess. Today, we would like to share with you some of the messes we've made over the past 12 years.
In the 5th grade, a close group of friends and I had our first experience with grand romantic gestures. When we walked into the little cubby room, we discovered little handmade clay roses tucked into our backpacks. Of course, we jumped to the conclusion that we all had secret admirers. We agreed to keep it a secret until we could figure out who was so enamored with us that they would leave us these lovely gifts. So naturally, about 30 minutes later, the whole class was buzzing with the news.
So I made the clay roses. They were just meant to be gifts for some of my friends. I didn't have enough clay for all of my friends. So I made a few and sneakily tucked them in their backpacks, planning to tell my friends at recess. Of course, they found the roses before I could tell them, and already the rumors were spreading. I quickly had to tell them it was me.
So unfortunately, we learned that we didn't have secret admirers, just an attentive and creative best friend. We, of course, couldn't tell the whole class we hadn't been gifted those roses from classmates who were madly in love with us, because the news had already spread. So we decided to keep it quiet and let the whole rose debacle die down on its own. It only took a day, however, for a copycat rose maker to start leaving other flowers in classmates' bags. So to our dismay, the whole mystery persisted a few weeks longer.
In 4th grade, we planned a legendary April Fool's prank for Mr. Glavin that would never be forgotten. As some of you may know, it takes a while for our grade to agree upon ideas, but in this instance, there was no dispute about the April Fool's prank we would pull off. For those who don't know, Mr. Glavin is a die-hard Yankees fan. You can catch him wearing Yankee apparel whenever he has the chance. That being said, we knew exactly what would make him mad at first, but in the end, he laughed right along with us. Our class managed to come in early on April Fool's Day and paste Red Sox logos on every square inch of his classroom. We put posters on the walls, the floors, and his desk. We even managed to reach the map in the front of the room, pull it down, and smack the iconic Boston Red Sox B across the United States. He couldn't escape our prank, and our goal was achieved.
Lila and I have been best friends for a long time. We've also been roommates for a long time. That is, when we go on class trips, we always seem to end up in each other's assigned room. That is not a bad thing, though. As a matter of fact, that is a really, really great thing. Lila has a habit of saving my life. First thing you should know about me, my least favorite thing in the world is having to wake up. Sleep is a glorious thing, and for some reason, a lot of people don't understand that and like to do things bright and early so they don't waste the day. Ugh. Now, after enough sleepovers and rooming situations, Lila has figured out how to wake me up gracefully and, thank goodness, patiently. Others do not share that same patience Lila does and have had some remarkably creative ways to attempt to rouse me.
Since you all probably don't know Lauren as well as I do, one thing you should probably know is that the only thing Lauren loves more than her dog is me and her sleep. With this deep love of sleep that Lauren has, myself and many others have realized she is not the easiest to wake up in the morning. In fact, waking up a skeleton might be easier than trying to get her up before noon. Although we are best friends, we really are like night and day, and I mean that rather literally. She is the night owl, and I am the early bird. Thankfully, my inability to sleep in has come to good use. On the 2 trips we went on in 8th grade, I was given the exciting task of making sure that our rooms got everywhere on time, which basically was a nice way of saying I needed to be Lauren's wake-up call.
8th grade was a rough year. The first trip was the annual class trip to Washington, D.C. We shared a room with a rather impatient person, and I was attempted to be awakened by means of blasting Justin Bieber music, which did very little besides annoying our neighbors, and an attempted attack by a curling iron. Thankfully, Lila was there to intercept the wand and prevent me from getting set in the hot seat.
Waking Lauren up is rather similar to poking a bear with a stick. It must be done strategically, or else you'll end up with less limbs than you started out with. Since the only poking object we had was a heated curling iron, I decided a different approach was necessary to ensure the safety of everyone in a 600-foot radius. Gentle coaxing along with the throwing of various objects seems to do the trick.
The second trip was to the Adirondacks for a May term, and we were the only 2 girls. That trip, Lila foiled plans to unleash toads, dump large amounts of water from a nearby pond on me, and shift our tent to various locations unbeknownst to its content.
Now, Lauren, unless your future roommate can combine expert pillow smacking, sock throwing, and gentle words, I recommend not scheduling any classes before noon.
No Allendale Columbia experience would be complete without a full year's experience of U.S. history taught by the school's man of the century, Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt was not just his... It was not just his class that I found very interesting, but his personality as well. His stern and serious demeanor was something I could see going hand in hand with some form of humor my friends and I could whip up. Mr. Hunt was still, and is still, very invested in the material he teaches. The way one could tell was because he would use the students in his class as examples of historical scenarios that he was teaching at the time. To that end, he would put a lot of physical energy into making sure he got his point across to us. One day, I had his class first thing in the morning, and I was exhausted, most likely because I had spent the previous night doing something unproductive. I had my computer out and was pretending to take notes while I tried to sleep behind the screen, foolishly thinking I could escape the great eye of Hunt. It didn't work, of course, as Mr. Hunt asked me from across the room if I was still with the group. I said yes, of course, though I didn't actually know what we were covering in class, as I was too tired to pay attention. I went back to the same thing I had been doing beforehand, trying to sleep behind my computer, hoping that nobody would notice. What happened next was not from my own account until the very end, as I was asleep for most of what happened. Apparently, Mr. Hunt was giving a lecture on aircraft weaponry used in World War II. Mr. Hunt pretended he was a plane and that his hands were explosives. He flew over to my desk and smashed both his hands, now fists, onto my desk and screamed, "Boom!" I woke up in a panic, staring into Mr. Hunt's face, who was now gritting his teeth at me. My heart was pounding so fast, and all I heard was the laughter of my classmates around me as I tried to process what had just happened. Needless to say, my eyes never shut again for the rest of the day.
In the entire upper school, it's a well-known fact that Mr. Hunt has been in every war. Mr. Hunt talks about every event in history as if he's been there. That's what makes Mr. Hunt such an amazing teacher. He doesn't just talk about history, he is history. The way Mr. Hunt brings history to life is by putting us into real-life situations. One morning, my U.S. history class was studying the American Revolution. We were talking about joining the war, and Mr. Hunt called on me saying, "You're a merchant from Boston, and the British are taxing your products. You don't like that, do you?" "No." "What are you gonna do?" "I'm gonna fight." "That's right. You're gonna grab your guns, baby, and join the revolution." I've never met any other teacher that talked about history as if they've been there on the battlefield. That's why I know that Mr. Hunt has been in every war.
Disclaimer, this story has been embellished for the sake of comedic and entertainment purposes. This story begins with a casual lounge break in the middle of a day on a Friday in our junior year. Hormones were running rampant and the hot springtime air didn't help romantic endeavors. The lounge was divided by gender and the boys were particularly competitive this day. Zion and Gio happened to be sitting on the same couch by some freak accident of chance that would result in an entire column destroyed and a legend born. For on that fateful day, Gio made the mistake of initiating a fight with the wrong kid. Zion turned towards Gio with fire in his eyes and his hair standing on end. I, as the neutral observer in this clash of giants, saw Zion pick Gio up full over his head, spin him 3 times to build centripetal force, and in a WWE atomic drop position, fling Gio like a rag doll against the wall. The question, whilst Gio was flying midair, was whether the wall or Gio's broad shoulder would yield first. It was indeed the wall. When the dust settled and the rage subsided and the aftershock earthquakes ended, I saw a crater the size of a humongous golf ball in the wall, and Gio and Zion laughing hand in hand over their romp. The class would tell this tale in great reverence over the strength and fortitude exhibited by both parties. Here I stand, the bard of this tale, sole mortal survivor.
In reality, it was a light shove. But in the end, there was a decent-sized hole in the wall. This hole was not the first either. The day before, there was another hole incident in the lounge. Due to a series of unfortunate coincidences, there came to be a pea-sized hole in the wall. No one knew who made it. Rather, no one would say they knew who made it. But there it was. This caused an upset in who would repair the wall. There was the ideology, I didn't make it, I shouldn't have to fix it. And there was also the ideology, since someone in your class made it, your class should fix it, not the maintenance men. After a couple of long homeroom discussions, our class was given an ultimatum: fix the hole or lose the lounge. Eventually, a ragtag team consisting of Kennedy Robinson, Adelaide Flood, Allison Zell, Kenneth Magaro, and myself was formed, and we valiantly marched down to the maintenance department to retrieve the spackle and paint. We explained the situation to the maintenance men, and they laughed at us. They laughed because I figured they'd do the same thing, shaking their heads in that kids will be kids kind of sense. Once we got back, it took us a while to figure out what to do. And after staring blankly at each other for quite some time, we winged it. Much like a classic Monet painting, up close it was horrendous. But when you took a step back, it was good enough. The very next day, I find myself embedded in the wall. The first thing going through my head was, I really can't just play this off. After Zion and I received severe verbal bombardment from our fellow classmates, we were convinced to tell Mrs. Broberg. In that moment, I noticed the entire grade set aside their differences and banded together. They tailed close behind us as Zion and I took the walk of shame to go tell Mrs. Broberg about our accident. Our grade did not stop there, no. They continued to rally together by escorting Zion and I down to the maintenance department. They dispersed only once we got there, and they knew that we were safe and sound. As Zion and I pushed open the doors to the maintenance wing, the first thing I heard was, "You again?"
After having attended Allendale for the past 13 years, I can honestly say I have built amazing friendships here and created wonderful and long-lasting memories. However, this memory in particular I wouldn't mind forgetting.
After having attended Allendale for 15 years, I can honestly say that this memory is one of my favorites.
Growing up, Tori and I had an unusual friendship. She was an energetic tomboy who enjoyed sports and who was seemingly fearless. I was a rambunctious, self-proclaimed girly girl with a knack for what my parents called creative storytelling. Together, our imagination
still does,
run wild.
Madison had been obsessed with American Girl dolls. Being the girly girl in this relationship, that's all she ever wanted to talk about. On one fateful day at recess, she brought her catalog into school to show everyone exactly what she wanted. Molly, one of the historic dolls, was all she asked for Christmas, and she was so excited. So finally, when Christmas came around and she received her very own doll, I knew it provided the perfect opportunity to have some fun. I generously provided all the information I could think of on the dangers of possessing American Girl dolls, or should I say, American Girl dolls possessing you.
Suddenly, what had once been a long-awaited dream turned into a chilling nightmare. Several days in a row, I came into our third-grade classroom with bloodshot eyes, fearing that if I slept, my doll would attack me, just like Tori told me it would. Tori had kindly informed me that my doll was possessed. So instead of braiding her hair and playing dress-up, I stuffed Molly into the depths of my closet with no intention of playing with her. To this day, I know Tori was telling me the truth. There was just something off about the doll's glassy-eyed stare, the way her eyes followed me around the room.
And Madison, didn't you notice the way she's never in the same place? Where'd you leave her?
Oh, she's sitting in a box under my bed, still waiting for... Boo!
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michaela Gross, and I am a junior here. When people ask me what school I go to, I tell them Allendale Columbia School. I usually get a mixture of confused looks, but every once in a while, someone will say, "Oh, that's a great school," and they will ask me if I like it here. Naturally, my answer is always yes, but I can never tell if they're asking about the education or the people. Don't get me wrong, The education is superb, and I can't imagine being as successful anywhere else than I am here. But I think what makes this school so great are the people in it. When I first came to Allendale, it was hard for me to make friends because I felt like I didn't fit in. My intuition tells me that at one point in time, everyone in this room has felt like they didn't belong. I know from experience that feeling alone when there's an abundance of people around you is one of the worst feelings to have. To be frank, I hope we can all agree that there is a lot of divisiveness in our world right now, and it has become easier for people to feel isolated from one another. That is why it's so important to be aware and to be mindful of the people around you. That is why I'm speaking to you today and why we do this event. Over the years, I've watched Allendale change for the better. Today marks the beginning of holiday break, but I want to challenge everyone in this room to also mark today as an opportunity to reach out to people who have different views than you, an opportunity to broaden your horizons, and an opportunity to take advantage of the wealth of people that makes Allendale so great. So I ask that you continue to go forth with respect and inclusivity. Oh, and in case you were wondering, it didn't take long for me to figure out that there is someone for everyone in this school, and I now have the best group of friends. When there is light, there is hope. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. So we put our lights on when we speak, and that's job number one done there. My first fear was that it's going to get stuck on green. We can't have that. You know what I mean? We're blue. Struck me, too, that the next time this room will be filled with so many people is when these guys graduate. And you may not know, but holiday breakfast attendance is optional for our seniors. Not so much for our lifers, who you heard speak, but for our seniors. And so the fact that we have so many of them here tells you that this class in particular is very married to the traditions of the school that we've had for years. So next time we are all here, they'll be coming across the stage for a diploma. But they've got a way to go yet, a lot of good behavior ahead of them. But let's give them a round of applause and get to congratulate them. I especially want to thank our lifers for their great stories and for being the inaugural members and lead donors to the Build a New Wall at the School Fund. So thank you. All right, story. Short story. Real story. Anyone? It's called The Penguin and the Pine Cone. Anyone heard of that? Okay, that's a... Well, it's a real book. I'm sure. Selena Yoon. This is the Mr. G edit. So... it is about a penguin, a baby penguin, and a pine cone. A larger pine cone, it seems. And the story goes like this. The penguin living in its frozen land. Our nursery and pre-K students would know this because they're studying Antarctica, and anyone can just look at that and say, that looks like a king emperor penguin, Mr. G. Right? And it is. So the penguin was wandering around, and it found a pine cone. It loved that pine cone. They played together every day, as penguins and pine cones do. All all kinds of games for many, many days. So days and days pass of playing. Do you see those? Where's Mr. Norfolk? See those puppeted moves I have there? The penguin grew, but the pine cone stayed the same size, and the penguin didn't know what was going on. So it asked its parents, and its parents are really smart, aren't they? Yes, all parents. And the parents said, well, we live in the frozen Antarctica. That's no place for a pine cone. They belong in the forest. You have to take them where they're able to grow. So the penguin did two things. It got on its sled. No, I don't have a sled. It got on its sled with the pine cone, and off they went on a long, long journey to the forest. And when they got to the forest, the penguin, because the pine cone had been so cold, made a scarf for the pine cone and found a place on the floor in the forest, a nice nest that was warmer. And this is the sad part, had to leave it because the penguin belongs in the frozen Antarctic. The pine cone belongs in the forest. So the penguin left. It was a little sad. It's trudging away. Many years passed. Clearly. And the penguin grew, and he was really missing the pine cone. There was his best friend, they loved each other, and so the penguin decided to go back to the forest and find its friend. So the penguin got back on its sled. It went many, many miles to the forest. It went right to the space in the forest where it had left the pine cone, and he couldn't find it. It looked all over the place. It was looking down in all of the spaces, but it couldn't see it. Finally, when it was ready to go home and give up on the search, it looked up. Way up in the sky. And it had realized that its small friend, because it was placed in a place where it had a chance to grow and be nurtured, it had grown into a huge, bigger than this one, a huge tree. Well, the penguin and the pine cone fell right back in love. They played all day, as fir trees and penguins do. And they became great friends again. The penguin, though, knew that it had to go back to the Antarctic, and it knew that the tree belonged in the forest. So they said goodbye, and they knew they'd live apart, but they knew they would always be best friends. Now, that story is about two things. One is love, and one is providing an environment, the right environment to grow. You students, and you, over there, the big ones, have had both of that. You have your family here to provide love and a nurturing environment. I like to think that your teachers do that too. So here's the final message for our students. A little bit like Michaela's. When you get a chance to have a holiday break with your family, let's say thank you to them. Let's remind them that you love them and you appreciate everything they do to help you grow. Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we do that? You especially need to do that because they're going to have college things to pay for you. Oh, I forgot the last bit of the story. You never know where penguins have planted pine cones. that grow into big trees with orange scarves on them. So when you walk away to go get donuts today, you have to look around really carefully to see if any pine cones were planted anywhere near here. You never know. Have a great holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone, and we'll continue with some performances. Thank you.
There's a candle glowing in the window, a candle I can see. When it glows, I know that all is well, for that candle glows in peace.
Sego, Skinagogo. Good morning. My name is Joy Neil Gavin, and I am Haudenosaunee and a member of the Mohawk Nation. And although I am a member, I cannot speak to all of us because I am not all of the Mohawks in the world and I am not their representative. I am a junior who was asked to shed light on my culture and educate the audience. I repeat, I do not live in a teepee and I don't know how to skin a deer. As I have previously said, I am Haudenosaunee and we believe in saying thanks. We say it before every day and after every meal. We say it to remind ourselves of our place on Turtle Island and to teach ourselves to be respectful of everything in the universe. We start from the ground up, thanking the ground and the grass and the four-legged animals. We thank the trees for their shade and the sun for its light. We remind ourselves of these things in our world and the next and how it helps us in our lives. We do our part in helping this earth that has supported us from the beginning of its creation. We believe in equality, not just in gender and in race, but in the very life that we hold and in relation to all of the other life in the planet, including flora and fauna. Our Earth has undergone several millennia of development to get to where it is today. So I ask you to recognize your own place in this world and to help others that may have fallen below you. Try to think of all the things that have helped you along the way, the parents or guardians that may have supported you, the food that nourished you. Acknowledge the air that came from the trees and the animals that gave their life to feed you, and the plants that did the same. All of these things have helped you become who you are today. All of these things came from our earth. Think of the earth that has been with you and felt you walk on its surface since the day you were born. Now I have to ask you another thing. Please respect this earth. Please love it with everything you have, and do not waste it. We have already wasted so much time in using its resources: oil, deforestation, climate change. We need to stop and realize our place in this earth and overcome our greed and find the solution that will arise. We need to come together and fix these issues. We need to stop arguing on whether or not you will make money on saving lives, because these lives should be payment enough. We can do such great things with what we've been given. There is so much more to life than greed and money. Life has so much to give us, and we are so small. We can bring such great happiness and contentment if we use the tools we have gained to create a more sustainable happiness that can bring light to even the darkest of places. Thank you.
happy children with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the clean neighborhood when the right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. And light one candle for wisdom to know that the peacemaker's time is at hand.
Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly that we keep it alive in that flame? What is the memory to those who have died forever in our dying pain? All we ever miss, all we believe, that justice will somehow prevail. This is the promise, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go out.
Arrivederci e grazie. Askange ai utanda vertigo.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Καλά Χριστούγεννα και ευτυχισμένος ο καινούριος χρόνος.
Yan xin vui vẻ tất cả.
Feliz Navidad.
Adios.
Thank you for coming to celebrate with us today. We hope you enjoyed the program. We would like to invite everyone to join us in the dining commons following the procession. Thank you and enjoy the holiday. Oh.